and it would seem odd that I would move it, but I'm going to move that I sign the call for alcohol action. Would you like to second that? Is there any discussion? Yanni?
I think it would be useful in the report, and I haven't seen it, but as part of the local alcohol plan or policy, we made a number of recommendations to government, I thought, around some of these issues. And I guess it would be timely just to get an update as to what's happening with the LAP, given that we've heard that accessibility is one of the key issues in terms of alcohol.
We as a council decided to put the local alcohol plan on hold until there were the results of some of the court case, not court cases, but the authority cases that have been taken by the supermarket industry and the hospitality industry against local councils. As a council in a recovery environment, we decided that it wasn't, we couldn't afford to invest the time and the money in the legal processes that would follow from the notification of the plan. So we are waiting to see what the authority determines in relation to the change of hours for supermarket trading, and specifically the hours for hospitality venues. Once we know how the authority will determine these cases, then we will be in a position to make a decision as to whether we notify the LAP. Paul?
I support doing something about this, but the root of the problem really is supermarkets have normalised alcohol. You got kids from the smallest age and their trolleys going straight past these alcohol aisles, whereas previously they couldn't access it generally in a liquor store. Is there an opportunity we can ask or try and legislate that they, like cigarettes, have to put them either in a cupboard or away somewhere else where they are not, in the supermarket people don't go past them at a young age, and it becomes quite normal to purchase it with their groceries. I mean, that's that whole normalisation that's actually taken the alcohol sales in supermarkets to the #1 category. It surpasses butter and bread. So it's to me it seems like supermarkets are the major problem of it. They lost leader it as far as sales go. So we're going to think of some ways we can actually sort of hinder how they actually trade through the supermarkets, and I think that's really the core root of the problem.
I agree. Ali, Glenn, Dave?
I'd actually sound a word of caution on what Paul is saying. I don't have any problem with normalising alcohol, actually. In fact, I think it's really important to do so. What I think we have to be very careful is normalising the antisocial behaviour and the excesses that go with alcohol. And I don't know about you, but getting bread, milk and the weekly groceries, when everyone's incredibly busy, being able to buy a bottle of wine in the supermarket is actually extremely helpful. So I think we've got to be very careful that we don't penalise those who are sensible with alcohol, but at the same time I agree and appreciate that there are things you have to do for the greater good, and it's finding the balance between those two things. I'm also very... I think it's really important that we acknowledge the extra pressure on people in Christchurch, particularly in the post-quake environment, and the reasons why people self-medicate or drink to excess, and we need to be able to look at why that is happening and address that problem rather than slam them with a hammer. They're going to get the alcohol somewhere, and maybe it's going to be the rent or the kids' food or whatever that will go on that. So this is a really big problem. This is a good start. I endorse this. But I think that we have to be very careful that it's not the thin edge of the wedge and we don't end up being a nanny state.
Glenn?
Thank you. I've had the opportunity to hear many of these issues, such as the loss leading, raised before, and Yanni raised that in the previous term over the LAP. Just putting that to one side, we'll hear those again if we come back to that and we're waiting on court outcomes. But I think, in my view, the best thing we could do in the interim is to support this, although actually this stands alone as I think, a powerful statement. I'm actually hoping that... I remember John Bluck, who was Peter Beck's predecessor in my training, talked about that kind of New Zealand male psyche anyway, the rugby soldier model. and we're still kind of working through that as New Zealanders, and I think I'm looking forward to the day when we get past it. I don't know, maybe the centenary of the war celebrations next year could be a chance to say, look, let's let's start looking at a new New Zealand and get past this kind of embedded culture which we've had for so long. But I support this, and I think that the supermarket lobby is so powerful, and we ran into this in the LAC proceedings, that this is the best thing we could do, I think, in the meantime.
Dave?
Thank you. Look, I support the general thrust of the this call for action, but I have some reservations about the focus, and really we've seen in instances before where increasing the price of cigarettes really didn't do too much to stopping people smoking. Increasing the price of alcohol is probably not going to do much more. For me, it's a change in culture, and I see a couple of things being sort of influential, if you like, in the current problems that we face. One is RTDs, and they are so cheap and so readily available. You can buy them cheaper than a bottle of Coke, basically, and that to me is one of the big issues. And the other one probably is the supermarkets themselves. I don't have a problem, like Ali, of the supermarkets selling alcohol. The thing I do object to, I suppose, is you walk into a supermarket, any supermarket, and the first thing you hit is the booze. And really, I think if we're going to be effective in reducing alcohol dominance, the supermarkets need to take a responsible lead for a starter, and not have such a focus on alcohol, and B, I think, as Paul and others have mentioned, this practice of lost leaders really is diabolical and adds nothing to the effort to reduce alcohol problems in the country. So I'll support the resolution today, but just note my reservations about the direction that's being approached here, and I would rather see more of a approach to the culture of alcohol and some of our marketing processes as being the focus.
Phil, and then Pauline.
Actually, I see this, the combination of interventions that Call for Alcohol Action are asking for will help change our culture, our drinking culture. And I think there's a good opportunity for us as leaders to actually be part of that change. And I don't agree that this has actually got anything to do with an any state. Recently, for example, government passed legislation reducing the amount of alcohol we can drive with, and generally that was accepted. That wasn't in any state. This is about changing our culture for the good of our people, and the social cost that Professor Selman referred to of $5 billion a year is absolutely staggering. So this is something that we can do as leaders to help turn this tide. So I support it.
Pauline?
Yes, look, I support the principle behind it and the addressing the culture, but I also support what Councillor Lonsdale and Councillor East have said too. I think the supermarkets are a big problem, and that has not been addressed in this, and also the RTDs are a huge problem. I'm just wondering, in the 4 priority actions, I think that's where the issue I have. I don't support increasing the tax on alcohol because I think it's already extremely highly taxed. I worry about people who actually drink responsibly but do not have a budget to do so, and they could well be, vulnerable and excluded from this. So I am concerned about the tax on alcohol increase. Is there any scope to support this without supporting all the priority actions, or do we have to support it in its entirety or vote completely against it?
These 4 are 4 of 5 plus one, which is around alcohol treatment availability. And as Doug Selman said, the age has been taken out for a range of reasons. These are evidence-based mechanisms for improving, it's reducing the availability or the very low cost availability of alcohol. And I mean, it's true what people are saying about the supermarkets. And in a way, you know, part of why we can't really notify our local alcohol plan at the moment is because we know that they are well resourced to take us on, and we need to wait to see what their direction is. So I think it's really, it's a question of whether, as the Mayor of Christchurch, the City Council will support me signing this letter on behalf of the council. I think that it's a bigger conversation that we have to have with our communities. I feel personally that we have been left to deal with the hard end when the government hasn't actually dealt with the hard end. You know, the end that would make the biggest difference. And I'm not saying that about the current government. I'm saying that about successive governments. So in 1989, it was a conscience vote, and it was led by a Labour minister. The 1999 changes were a conscience vote, so individual parliamentarians voted. So it wasn't government to government, but it was, in that case, led by a national minister who went on to become a Minister of Health. You know, so sometimes actions taken with one hat, you don't see that the cost actually ends up in somebody else's budget. Although I have to say that if you want to look at the, not just the emergency department, but if you want to look at police work after midnight, then I can tell you that almost all of the work that they're doing after midnight in towns around New Zealand, and in our instance only because we haven't got a town around Christchurch, in the middle of Christchurch at the moment, but we have almost all of those cases are alcohol related. You know, the assaults, it's just, and it's constant, and it's every weekend throughout the country. So unless we tackle the hard end, and these are the hard end, and we do know that price makes a difference. Actually, price did make a huge difference to smoking rates in this country. You know, we know that this works, so yes, it is. It's the four. Jimmy.
I support the mayor sign this the call for the alcohol action, because I think the intention is very important. You know, with the inner being, because we heard from the professor, the doctor, he mentioned earlier, this initial signatory have kind of 37 specialists, community leaders, etc. They concern the country, they concern this community. And also they have a kind of experience, release quite a few comprehensive report regarding to if we have excessive alcohol drink, actually it's damage this society. And also he particularly mentioned one is harm to our society, not only individually, but actually it's the community, your probably family members, your community, your the kind of organization, etc. And also we review this the report, even the absenteeism is quite a few. Actually, you know, it's also reduced the productivity in the Christchurch. Another one spend the social cost a lot, because like ACC, health, justice sector, as well as the tax, etc. All this negative the impact. So I suggest, you know, because based on staff recommendation here, only whether we agree or disagree. I agree. I support the mayor to sign the list of alcohol action. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried. Pauline, was that you? Yep, Pauline Cotter. Opposed. Yep. Thank you very much.